What is going on, everybody? Welcome to NMIGT Entertainment, and I am Joel. Nice to see you here on this lovely day. Hot as always now here in Richmond. The humidity is about 3,000% and everything on your body gets wet. So anyway, with that being said, we are here to talk about Wasp today. I have owned this vehicle for a year and 8 months. It has a little under 5,000 miles on it. Because, you know, I used to work from home and I don't have to drive anywhere, but that's a whole different story. But we're going to go get into the ownership of this car, what I feel Ford needed to improve by giving you this car. There's a lot of things that probably if they would have changed or done a little better, their sales might have been a little better too. But I'm just going to give my opinion on this car and what I think it should have had. So, again, let's roll that intro for you. Alright guys, I know I'm working on that intro. I'll have something here shortly. Like I said, I don't have enough rollers with this car and other things to get into all that. So I'll work on it. But nonetheless, we're going to talk about Wasp. I sold Electra to get Wasp to the way she is today. And you know what? I'm not upset about it. I'm not upset at all. This car is performing beautifully. It has all the creature comforts. It's upgraded. It's fast now. So, like I said, let's get into this car and I'll show you what I dislike about this car off the bat. Alright guys, the very first thing, and I don't know what it is with Ford, but their fitment, their alignment, the way that things come together. It never, I don't know why the S550s, the S650s have this issue, but it's how all the body lines come together. They're not good. I don't know how that comes about. And like I said, it's not one of those things you think you pay, 60 grand for a car. You would have some things squared away a little bit, right? So it is kind of how the fitment of how the panels come together. It's not very good. Brand new out of the showroom, without tinkering it looks kind of crazy. Like the fitments here, it's there, but it's not there, And then the alignment of the hood. Now some of this could be in with the stuff I have under the hood, might be pushing it up a little bit or not. I don't have another one to go verify that's whatever, but I think the alignment of the panels should have been a lot better. And again, like I said, from afar it doesn't look bad, but you get up to it, you start seeing that type of stuff. Okay, the front end of these cars. Now, I have changed the front end of my car, obviously. I have the RTR grills in here. I've changed to the diodynamic fog lights. And of course, you had the smoke headlights, which is just fine. But I still believe, and it's not even with the RTR stuff, that's kind of a taste thing. If you like it, if you don't like it. I think what they should have done with the actual Fords, from factory, is to have this open all the way through like it is now. Now it didn't have to be lit up, it just have an open nostril. I think like the Dark Horses are straight up open. They don't have the weave or anything blocking the airflow. That's a plus. It goes right in, more air, more spark, more horsepower, right? So that's one thing. But they do not put fog lights on these cars. Every GT from now to back whenever had some type of fog light. And for some reason they decided, hey, these cars don't need fog lights. Well, I put the fog lights on here and I think it added at least 110% more viewability to it. You know, people kind of look at it and it pops a little more. So definitely fog lights. And I know, well, actually I don't know. I don't know why they didn't put it on there. I don't know why another company had to create a fog light for the car that I think originally should have just had one anyway. I mean, it looks so much better with the fog lights there. And sorry for the fan noise. But like I said, look at that. It adds a whole different look to it. Now this next part is, I guess, depends on the person. Now, I am a 20-inch wheel guy. A lot of people like the 19s. But the problem with the aftermarket with 19s is you're kind of limited on a tire size or the type of wheel size that you could get. Well, I guess they make 19s, but it's the size of tire that isn't available in the makes and models. Like certain brands only go up to so wide in that 19, where 20s it's more, you know, open and more, I guess it's more of a standard. So I think the GTs should have brought at least an option for the 20 wheel package. Because like I said, to me, it makes all the world of difference in it. Now you have some people that like to run a bigger sidewall with a smaller rim, which is fine. You know, and that looks good. And I guess it all depends on the application you want to do. This to me shows well. Like I said, I believe that this is a good look for this type of car. Like I said, it fills in all those gaps. And again, it is lowered, and I'll get into that in a moment. But like I said, even lowered with a 19, you're going to have more of a gap in there. None of this really rubs. It rubs sometimes in the front if I'm powering through stuff and hit a hard bump, but it's not to the point where it's tearing up your tires or anything. It's just kind of a little skirt. But yeah, I think they should have offered a different tire package. And a lot of people go in the 20s from the get-go, and like I said, they don't offer anything in 20s. Everything's always in 19. So I think they would actually help themselves if they had that a little bit. Now this next part is in the rear. Now if you got the pony package, well, the night package, excuse me, the night package with this Mustang, you know, you get the black accents, you get the black 5.0, the black mirror caps, the black roof, black wing, and then it comes with the black factory wheels. Now you tell me why. You got all these accents going on. When you get the exhaust, it's chrome. Even with the active exhaust or whatever, or it's not even really chrome, it's the metal, you know, exhaust metal is what it is, which makes no sense because you have everything accenting with the black, even the black GT in the back, right? So you got that going on, and then you end up with chrome tips. Now I went ahead and changed the exhaust to the black tips. I got the Corsa Extremes, they're the active exhaust on here, and I believe it looks a lot better because it ties everything in together. Now some people don't care about that. You know, it's not the fit and finish, you know, they just want the active exhaust and don't care what it looks like. And like I said, some of the cars, it looks fine because you'll have like the chrome badge, you know, and then the tips and then the wheels. So it all depends what you got going with. But if you purchase the night package on this car, to me, I think that it should have had the option of having black exhaust. Just because that's what you're paying for, right? You're paying for the black, and chrome, right? So where does that make sense in the deal, right? But like I said, it's all on opinion, and like I said, it is how you want it to be for you. Now, all these cars, you know, every Mustang made, you know, for a person, it's going to be different because everybody has a different feel, a different what they want to do with it. Hold on, that thought real quick. All right, as I was rambling on, when you buy a Mustang, okay, if it's a new one, an old one, most of the time, unless you're not a car person at all, you're gonna mess around with it, right? You're gonna go ahead and upgrade something. You're gonna go lower it. You're gonna do something to it, right? It's one of the most customizable cars, and I think Ford screwed up because they took some of the customization out of it. Going into the tuning of this car, you cannot tune it. The only way that it can be tuned is if you have, I think, Roush. I know Whipple because that's what I got going on. I don't know if ProCharger now has a tune with them, but is the only way to do it is to boost your car to get any performance out of it. Now, it makes a hell of a difference when you boost these cars, and I think these cars need a little more oomph anyway. I'll get into that in a moment, but I think they took away the tunability of this car, and that hurt them a lot because a lot of the people that buy Mustangs, you know, they get into the newer cars, you know, and then they want to be the first, or, you know, get into that part where they could see how they could customize this car. Well, when they shoot out tuning from the get-go, you know, it hurts this car because a year before it, you know, you could tune the car out, whatever, run at full bolt on, and be at 550 wheel horsepower. Now, these cars rated from the factory, you know, are 486 with the active and 480 without the active. That's crank horsepower, not wheel horsepower. And me coming from Electra, a boosted car, before this was boosted, this car was slow. It felt slow. Like I said, you get into it and, you know, it doesn't meet that par. You know, it's not where you think a 24 Mustang that they rate at 486 should be, and it wasn't. Like I said, that was one thing I was kind of teetering with this car because it didn't make sense. What you went up in years, up in power, but it felt you lost performance in it, you know, and it didn't make no sense. And everything from like Brandon's car, the 15 and up, they've made improvements all the way through, and then it felt like they fell back on their morals here and laurels and everything else that they could fall back on for this year car. Now, me being me, I have made those improvements and got to where this car, I think, should be. It handles great now. It powers through things. And the look of it, to me, at least personally for me, I know a lot of people are not into yellow. I wasn't into yellow, you know, but I think this one turned out kind of tastefully. So let me get into some more of this stuff here. Okay, I think another thing that Ford should have had is maybe more of an aggressive lip for the Performance Pack GTs. Now, you have your regular base lip, and this one has a lip considered, you know, a little different than the base, you know, model. But I think what they should have done, you see how it comes out and then goes back in and then go back out. They should have had it this all the way around versus it cutting in and then cutting back out at the ends. I know they did it for probably aesthetics, but I think it would have looked better if it would have been that, and they probably would have not had people swap out lips all the time, you know. But, you know, there is a big market for the aftermarket, right? So, you know, it's kind of what it is for that. But at least in my opinion, that's what I think, because, you know, it looks great right there, and then it dips back in like a normal GT lip, and then it dips back out. So again, you know, it is what it is with that, but that's just my opinion. I think that would have looked a lot better if they just would have kept it straight across. and then instead of dipped it out like that. Now I think one thing they did do right with the Night Pony package, the night package on here, is they tinted the bezels in the headlights. So, you know, I think that gives it more an aggressive look, and it's factory, and people that like to tint their headlights don't have to, because it's a factory tint to it. So it works out beautifully. You don't have to worry about being pulled over because you got tint on your headlights or whatever. So, and as you can tell by the look of it, it looks pretty good. And like I said, again with the fog lights, I think the fog lights make a difference. That's why I kind of got the RTR before, because they didn't have the fog lights before. And I got the RTR grill because it had at least some type of aesthetic in the front, you know, light-wise. Now I toned down these because I got those. So these will show up as like kind of a daytime running light now versus a big bright light like they used to. And what I did with that is I took off the ground lead to this, which automatically made it go in to a driving light or a daytime running light type scenario. I don't know if y'all know or don't know from the Fords. With these cars, the factory grille has an LED in this corner and in that corner. I don't know what the whole purpose of the LED was, but it was one here and one there. So these tie in to those markers. So that's why they are dim without that ground on there. Once I put that ground in there, it runs the link to it and gives it the full power. And that's why they're so bright otherwise. Now, someone mentioned it to me before, and I don't believe it so much, but they said because the housing of this makes those look brighter. I don't believe that, because it's just the housing, it's not the lights themselves. The lights are bright, so like I said, it's not that type of deal for me. But like I said, I think that is something at least they did good, because I do like that look. Now they should have maybe done something like that in the tail light. Now a lot of people run Euros and do the switchbacks and whatever, and I'm fine with the red lights, but I think they should have maybe done more of a smoked to it, you know, something to tone it down a little bit. Still have it red, but you know, have it more of a smoked red. I think that would have tied it in a little better. And like I said, I went with the clear side smoke markers on here. You know, it's just little things. It's just the little things that, you know, that people go ahead and switch out or do whatever. And like I said, I think if they would have done smoked with this, it would have been fine. I don't mind the red, because I use the red as an access point. Red taillights, red brake calipers, red little dot, you know. So it's like little things here and there that kind of give it, that tie things in together with the black and the red. So I think that looks pretty good. But like I said, for the most part, those are some of the things that I believe needed to be changed on the outside of this car. You know, the tint, that's kind of questionable. That's all on the person. Like I said, I like a darker tint. A lot of people like tint on the windshield. I'm not a person on the tint on the windshield. I'm from the old school where I do the eyebrow to it. Now, I have seen the whole windshield done, and it does look good with the whole thing done. But like I said, me, I wear polarized glasses to drive. Polarized glasses through the tint gives you that kind of a wave to it. So it kind of distracts me more than anything else. So I'm glad I didn't do the windshield. And like I said, it's something I drive a lot. Well, I guess what I drive a lot, you know. So this and the Explorer. So I like that, and I did the same type of brow on the Explorer. You know, it comes down a little more because the windshield's a little bigger, but nonetheless, like I said, that's kind of a personal preference of how you want the car to look. Me, I do it more for I can see. So, like I said, it's just kind of all about that. All right, my friends, let's talk about this interior. Now, a lot of people didn't like these screens. And you know what? I was kind of one of them at first too. I was just like, they just kind of sit and protrude. After you drive this car for a little while, you don't notice it. It just feels like anything else. But like I said, the interior itself is nice. The charging pad is kind of garbage. You put a phone on there. If you got a big phone, which most people have, you know, they have the Samsung 25 Ultras or, you know, the Max iPhones or whatever, it'll charge this, but it'll slide sometimes. And then right here, they have the 12 volt plug-in. That isn't very thick. So if you have a phone with a case on it, your phone hits that, and you know, kind of, I work it out, and sometimes it works out fine, sometimes it doesn't. I do have a cord just for when it's not working out. The car has wireless Android, or you know, the other one, yeah, or you know, the iPhone, and then Android Auto. So you don't have that issue where you have to have it plugged in, right? So it'll link into your car if you have it set up that way. Hold on real quick. All right, with these door panels, they're pretty much the same as Brandon's car, a 15. They really didn't change too much on the interior. They might have upgraded the touch a little bit, or the design, you know, to go with this carbon fiber look weave type deal to it. But for the most part, it is the same door. Brandon buys parts for his car, and a lot of the stuff fits for this car, you know. So the cup holders and like the little inserts that you can put here, they both fit the same car, and we're talking almost a 10-year difference, right? So they should have probably updated this a little better. I guess if it ain't broke, don't need to fix it. It works out fine, and like I said, it's proven, I guess. So, but I still think they should have done more, gave you more of a, again, with, let's say, a yellow car, maybe be able to do yellow accents or yellow stitching, or, you know, depending the customization of the car that you were trying to go for. I think that should have been offered a little better, you know, and not everybody cares. Again, like I said, some people are just fine with the way things are. But, you know, for people that are car guys or people like me, you know, it would have been nice to have, you know, the yellow stitching around here, the steering wheel, or the yellow stitching here, just because of the yellow car. Now, you know, you could have a white car with white stitching, a black car with, you know, whatever accent you want. I mean, or you just go with the black stitching, the blue with the blue. You know, I don't think that would have been a hard thing to do either. But you know, everything's mass produced, so you know, it's easy to do it one way and then be done with it, right? But again, I think that would have helped out a little bit too, and would have gave everybody a little bit. I mean, they offer the seat belts where you could buy those in red or whatever. You know, I went with the black with the white stripe in there because for some reason when I ordered it, that was holding up the whole build, the seat belts, you know. And seat belts were, I'm glad I didn't get red, but maybe it would have been a little, you know, more in here. But then again, there's nothing red in here. You know, no stitching, no handles, you know, a button, that's about it, right? But you know, I think it looks good the way it is. I think that would have made it look better, you know, versus the white, you know, maybe had the yellow, whatever. So hold on, let me move over to the next thing. All right, I am going to talk about something that is near and dear to my heart: the audio system in this car. Now, you pay for the B&O system. That's what I have in this car. It's an upgrade, right? You get the sub, you get whatever. You get the 9 speaker system, is it? 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. So yeah, 9 speaker system with this car. And it's not good. It's not good for the money you pay to get the system upgraded. Like I said, I have dabbled. of maybe upgrading the system in here, but I don't have a job and I don't have that commitment to put into it right now, you know, because the way the cars are now, you can't switch out the head unit. You know, you got this, right? This is the whole kit and caboodle, everything's tied together. So there's a commitment to it, you know, and there's a price factor. You know, if you're good with doing that stuff yourself and have the background to do it, you might be able to save yourself a little bread and do it. But you know, you need the adapters now, the control panel that switches into your main system so you can run amplifiers and different things that, you know, before, back in the day, you would buy a head unit and the head unit would tie everything together. Now you have different parts that need to do it, right? So I have looked and I built kind of a cheaper system for this, but there's no such thing as cheap. It was roughly around $6,000, doing 2 subs in the back, doing Focal speakers in, doing the Dynamat, you know, having one big amp to run everything. I've always come from the school of doing two amps, you know, one for the interior and one for the sub type deal. So either way, it was just, it's a little expensive and it's not money I have to spend at the moment. But I think the audio system itself they need to reevaluate that with factory cars, because the Explorer has a B&O system, but I think it's just the acoustic chamber of the Explorer itself makes it sound better. You know, when there's bass, you can tell you don't have to crank everything crazy. Like I said, going down the road with the windows down on this, I have to have it at halfway just to hear it. That's not even because of the exhaust, just the wind noise and the way the car is designed. So, like I said, it's one of those things where, you know, they should spend some R&D in that. You know, they charge you like they did a lot, right? But it's not there. And like I said, I could design something better than they did. You know, I think anybody could, really, to be honest, because everybody has a different ear. Everybody has a different tone for sound. But like I said, the way that they have it set, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then they got a speaker in the center. I don't know if that relates to anything. I know when you set it up, you have the surround sound setting on here, so I don't know if that really does too much or not. You know, I think that's just where your Siri or your Android Auto or whatever, you know, talks to you. The car talks to you, right? So like I said, it's one of those crazy things where I think they should have at least gotten in there a little better to do what they needed to do. Just my opinion. All right, there is one cool factor with this, and I'm going to see if I can show it to you right there. That is behind the mirror right there. So nowadays, you know, people like to have their the cameras in the car, you know, just for the dash cams or whatever. So it gives you a power outlet that you don't have to run the cord from the bottom up and around to whatever. So, and it's a little USB. I've never used it. I don't know how well it is. I've heard that some people say that there's not enough power to power something like that off that little bit. I don't know. I can't tell you the truth about it, yes or no, either way. But I think it's still cool that they go ahead and, you know, if you're out of Virginia, you can run a radar detector anywhere else, right? But you can't do it here. So at least it gives you that access. You could set up your radar detector and then boop, right there, and you don't have to have the whole thing running all over the screen, right? So that's kind of a cool little trick. Like I said, and I think it's only in the GTs with the performance pack or the upgraded that isn't base. I'm sorry, the light just turned off. So, because I think Derek's did not have that, and his was a base GT. But like I said, that car's gone now. So, you know, it's the only one in the channel right now. Okay, earlier I started talking about this dash. Now, like I said, you get used to it and it's fine. But now, Saline is offering a dash cover, I guess it's what it is. So it comes out, you know, and it covers just like a dash pad, right? So you have one. Now, why didn't Ford just do that? Have this embedded into it. You keep the panels the way they are and do that. Now they have it in the aftermarket that you have to pay $1,000 for that piece. You know, $1,000 for just the covering. You know, it doesn't make no sense. And I don't even know how it attaches. I was curious, so I emailed them just to find out how it sticks. Because is it something that just lays on top? Do you have to take your dash apart to embed it in there? What have you? And the stupid thing about it is it comes with red stitching for $1,000. What if you don't have red stitching, right? You have the white stitching. So if you want to put white stitching on there, it becomes custom. And then it's like $1,300 because they have to do the stitching in white. Now you could do it any color, but if your stitching already in your car is white, why do you want to go ahead and throw red or blue or tangerine for all that matter, right? So you're looking at a piece that goes from here to here that sticks out a little bit and covers it for about $1,500. Now I could spend $1,500 somewhere else a lot better, right? So like I said, that's just kind of one of those things, you know, that I think they should have thought before, you know, and then it just should have been part of the car. You know, it doesn't make any sense. But, you know, it's above my pay grade, right, guys? And this has nothing to do with this conversation, but don't that gauge look good there? That was all custom. Like I said, they didn't make the pillar pods for this car. They made it for the year before, but then they changed this from round to that oblong shape. I think the speaker itself, it's the same inside, but they kind of get you there, right? So now they have to do whole new things. So I went ahead and got with my boys, got the accumeter gauge, autometer, excuse me, gauge, and went ahead and had the same one that's an electric put in here. The only difference is this is not a mechanical one, this is an electric one. So like I said, it reads a little different, but it works just as good. So let's talk about the transmission in this car. I got the MT82. Now I have never had a problem with any of my MT82s. Not in Electra. I used to, you know, I had 750 horsepower on that. No problem, right? This has an MT82. Now the dark horses have the Tremec. Why couldn't you, if you upgraded this car, have that option to put a Tremec in here? Same trans, same everything, you know? It's just, why couldn't they connect it the same way? Give you that option, right? I think they would have sold a lot more with the Tremec versus the MT82 just because of the stigma with the MT82s, right? Supposedly these are built a little better, but you know, that's just them talking about, okay, we upgraded this, that, and the other. It may be, may not, and might, again, depends who drives it. Me driving it versus Brandon driving it. I drive a lot easier. I get into it, but he drives everything like he stole it. So he went through 3 transmissions. I haven't gone through any. So that should tell you, right? So it's all on the way that people do it. If you're buying the car to do what the car is made for. I don't do what this car is made for. Now Brandon, he's all about it, right? He's got it and he'll run the shit out of it. So, you know, he'll fucking track it, he'll daily it, he'll do whatever, and you know, he got almost 100,000 miles about to throw a Whipple on there. So God, RAP that motor, right? And that trans again, because you know, he'll say, oh, I'm gonna drive it a little easier. He ain't gonna drive it easier. That bitch is gone, buddy. Anyway, let's hope not. Let's pray for him with that. So, but anyway, back to the thing, you know, I think they should have that option. That option should have been available. You know, people would pay the difference to have that in the car just because the Tremec is built a little stronger than the MT82. Again, my opinion, I think a lot of people have the same one. All right, sticking with the interior. It is pretty much the same as Brandon's. They've changed a little bit, but if you bought, you know, that the package, the performance pack or what, I think any of the GTs, besides the base trim, you know, have the heated and cooled seats separated. You know, I do like the white that they have. It's what, that space white or space gray, excuse me. That looks pretty cool. I do like that. The only reason why I didn't get the space gray is because I would have it all dirty and dingy, you know. So it's just kind of, with the black, you can't go wrong with that. Back seats, man, they should give you the option of just buying it with the rear seat delete. Still selling it as a GT, but having it as an option that you could do a rear seat delete. Because you're not fitting nobody back there. I'm short and there's no room for anybody back there. So, again, I think that should have been an option of, hey, if you want to do it like they do it with the GT500s, or you can get it with the rear seat delete, right? Same freaking body, you know. Brandon seems to have a little more room in it, and he drives with the seat back more, but I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm just used to my 14 that I had, because it seemed like you had a lot more room back there. The Recaros, I don't know why they can't make Recaros with heated and cooled. I think Chevy does, or at least heated, right? When you get them, they're fully manual for Ford, you know, and it doesn't make any sense. And I think that would actually help that part a little bit. The new Recaros for this year car, they're set a little, the bolsters are a little wider, so for people that are a little girthy like me, won't have to worry about their sides hurting after a little while, you know. Or have them adjustable. That would be different, you know, having the Recaros that you can adjust the sides on it a little bit, you know, have that as a power option, so you can have that for a skinnier person, have it tighter; for a wider person, have it a little bigger. I mean, it's a thought, right? You know, everything's electronic in these cars these days. You get the higher end cars, you could sit there and turn the seat upside down if you wanted to. There's like 87 different programs to it. So why can't they just do some basic functionality with these, right? Especially with the Recaros. You know, a lot of people like to buy the Recaros, but then they get into that stigma of like, well, I don't want to lose my heated and cooled and whatever. And if you don't use it, then it doesn't matter. But then again, you lose the power function, you know. So if multiple people drive your car, you lose the memory seats, if that's important. So, you know, it's like, it's the little things. You can't always think of the way that you look at it. Other people are different and have different ways and different lifestyles and different everything, right? So that way you can go ahead and, you know, have the Recaros in there, have them powered, have them mobile, you know, so you could have them set different ways and still be okay with it. Just an idea also. Okay, one more thing about the interior, or actually an option on this car: the drift brake. Now, I will try that drift brake one day, but to me, you buy a $65,000 car and you're gonna start drifting it into shit or burning up your tires, you know. I could see that being used more when the car's like 5 years old and you don't care, but as you're new and it's in warranty, and you know they're funny about warranties, right? You know, it's okay to use XYZ. You know, you sit there, you use your line lock, they'll know, and oh no, you done messed up your rear end because you're freaking doing burnouts. Or hey, you drifted the car because, you know, it might be factory, but then, you know, they're funny about that crap. So the drift brake. Now, I think it's a cool feature. It's probably more for the young at heart. And like I said, I'm going to do it in this car one day, just to have a video and to see how it really is, right? See if it is what it is. Maybe I get Brandon to drift it. He likes to drift shit all the time, you know. Let him have a feel of it and see how he likes it. But again, I think it's more of a attraction versus, you know, an actual functionality piece. You know, I think having the electronic brake the emergency brake. It's kind of weird, you know. You get used to that too, but it's just, you lift up or you push down, you know. You don't even have to do it hard. You just kind of do a little bit. Like I said, if the car loses power, you can't undo that because it's electronic, right? So, you know, if your car is dead and nothing functions and you can't power your car, I don't think you could undo your emergency brake. Now, you could sit there while the car is like it is now, you know, hit the thing, have it come up, and then hit the emergency brake, and then have it, and you could push it around as you need to. But that has power. So I don't know what will happen. And hopefully I don't have to find out anytime soon. But like I said, and if I'm wrong, hit me in the comments and let me know, because I just thought about that as I was talking, and I was like, well, that would make it kind of interesting, wouldn't it? But, you know, there's always little tricks to stuff around these cars. But like I said, you think about it, it's an electronic thing, your car's dead, you can't get power to it, how are you supposed to turn the brake off? You know, I think that's just one of those things too, right? All right, guys, here's where I have an issue with these cars. Now, when you buy a new GT, performance pack, top of the line, all the bells and whistles, they make you pay a gas guzzler tax because the car isn't efficient. But you're not getting what they're advertising. They advertise 480, 486 with the active. You're not getting that. You might be getting that at the crank if you're lucky. Like I said, I did a little bit of work on this car. I think I had headers on it and the Typhoon intakes. It was 417, 415, whatever it was, to the wheel. Now, they advertise it as more. You're not getting that, right? And people hear what they're selling you, but they're not understanding what you're getting. Now, with these cars, they need some help in the power department. I was bitching about the tuning, and you understand that part. But it definitely needs a little bit of help. Now, I love this car now. It is 815 horsepower with the Whipple. Now, when I first bought this car, that was not an option to do, where you could get it from the factory that way. It wasn't like that. That came a little later, 6 months, a year later, where Whipple and them started doing what they needed to do, and then you can actually get the car warranted, have factory put it in, and be done with it. Money-wise, it probably makes sense, because you're getting the same thing, and it's warranted, and it's factory installed. So you don't have to deal with anything, it's just there, right? But people like me, I don't mind doing the work, right? So we went ahead and upgraded it a little bit. And I think that maybe 800's a little crazy. And like I said, I think this is a little faster than that now, because I did pulley down. Can't show you right there, but it has the 3.6 in it now, and I'm planning on going to the 3.5 at some point. I do run E in this car at times. Right now it's on the 93, but like I said, when I travel I'll be on 93, but it works out because of the flex, not the flex, excuse me, this car can take up to E30 and adjust to it. Like I said, I've run E30 in here a few times, and it works great. Again, some people may do full fuel systems later on, but like I said, I didn't want to tinker with all that right now. But like I said, you got to understand when you get these cars that they're not giving you the right numbers. They're not doing it. And I did that 815 on 20s and whatever, supercharged and whatever. You know, if I went to a smaller wheel and then maybe did whatever, it might have gotten a little more off that bigger pulley. But like I said, let's just call it 830 and we'll just leave it at that for right now. But again, These cars are definitely power starred. They might feel fast to someone that hasn't had one or is their first time in a Mustang, but they're power starred. And you could, if you're in a manual, you could always tell from your third to fourth pull that it just kind of falls on its face till it gets up in the RPMs. Like I said, it's just kind of what it is. But like I said, this right here is definitely a must, or some type of power adder like that. It doesn't have to be necessarily Whipple. I'm not sponsored by nobody. It could be, you know, the Roush one that they got out now. They got a Pro Charger one that I looked at before. It sits over here and still uses both inlets. So does the other one. This to me is tried and true. I didn't care about the dual god damn it, those things, whatever the hell that is, it'll come to me in a minute. But throttle body, thank you. See, it takes me a minute. So I didn't care so much, and I do like the way this looks right now. Like I said, of course I added the carbon, and the only reason why I went with the carbon accents, and a kind of happy mistake, you know, I got this tube. So well, I got that, but I had to order that. So instead of having that just carbon by itself, I got the tube to accent that. And then of course they had the cover, so it kind of just tied things in together, right? So that's just kind of, again, a me thing. You don't have to worry about none of that. You get one of these Whipples with the rubber tubes. I got one in the house. I did upgrade the throttle body. Now the stage 2 comes with the 112. I got the 120. So anybody wants a 112 for their Whipple, I got one sitting brand new in the box. Gaskets, bolts, everything. Just saying. I know I shot off the rails there for a minute, but again, power. Power, power, power. Like I said, you buy a Mustang, you want to feel that power, you want to feel that need of speed, right? It's there, but it's not there. And like I said, the Explorer was faster than the Mustang. Now again, I did stuff to the Explorer. You know, I have it tuned. I could go to E50, E30, and use 93. Even on the 93 tune, with the little bit I've done, I mean, I've done the intake in it. Not the intake, excuse me. I've done the Whipple Mega Cooler, which is the bigger radiator on it, which, you know, keeps the temperatures down and lets you do a little more pulls. You know, I've done the boiler exhaust on it. Still has the normal turbos. It has the same downpipe, but has different exhaust from their back. And that car runs. The Explorer is very surprising, you know. And then, like I said, I got it dynoed, everything, and it was 511 horsepower. 510, 511, whatever it was, for a family SUV all-wheel drive. It works pretty good, and that's not doing any major motor work. That's not doing anything stupid crazy. It's not like changing gears out. It's not doing it. It's just a tune and little supporting mods, and the car runs, you know. So like I said, you can't do that with this now. You can't do this with this Mustang because you can't do the tune. The only way to have a tune is to go and invest in another freaking Mustang, which is that Whipple. I literally dumped another Mustang into this Mustang to get the horsepower by just putting that on there right there, you know. So that it makes a difference. Like I said, I went from 415, 417 to 515. I mean to 815, you know, and that's proven by the paperwork and doing whatever on the dyno. Now everybody goes, oh yeah, the dyno, you know, can plus or minus it, right? Okay, but at least it gives you a ballpark of where the car should be as compared to where it was before. And fuel economy with this is still good. It's not any worse, let's put it that way. Like I said, we went on the trip last week on the mountains, if you saw that video, and it did 21, 22, 23 miles to the gallon, you know, once you got into long runs on it, which is great for this car because, you know, it's usually 15, 16 city driving, you know, the way it is. So it does good. And like I said, we'll be taking this down to Myrtle. Pam's gonna go ahead and drive this down. I'm gonna take the Explorer down as a support vehicle. She just don't want to take her car. She wants to take my car. So that's fine by me. But let me get back to this story. Okay, another thing I think they actually did good with is the brakes on this. Now you got the 6-piston Brembos. They are ginormous, and they will stop on a dime. I haven't had no braking issues whatsoever. And the good thing is, with this particular model, you have the rear Brembos also. So, like I said, that's why the red comes in with me. I like the little accent, the ketchup and mustard, you know how it goes. And that's your drift / emergency brake right there. So you got 2 sets of brakes on the rear, and then, you know, your one on the front. So I think they did good with that. Stopping wise, I don't think there's any problems. Now, anybody that has Brembos knows that brake dust is a thing. And I think they need to worry about it. Not Ford so much, but they need to find a better compound or offer a better compound from the factory that will, you know, help you alleviate that brake dust. Again, some people may not care. They're not worried about the aesthetics. They don't care about brake dust. They don't care about all that crap. Me personally, I do. As you can see, I do keep my cars clean, right? This thing is a maggot you could eat off of it. I cleaned it yesterday just to clean it. You know, it's my therapy. It's what I do. It keeps me out of trouble and at home and doing what I need to do. So again, brakes are good, right? Like I said, I have no problem with the brakes, and they're ginormous, and they stop and they do what they gotta do. Now when I have to change the brakes, I might be bitching because it probably will cost a little bit. And what I always do with my cars, and I haven't done it with these yet because I didn't feel like getting into that quite yet, I usually put the cross drill and slotted rotors on the car. I haven't done it yet, and when I go to change these, I'll do it then. But like I said, these work pretty good as it is right now. I have no issues with it, so we'll kind of leave it at that. All right, guys, small little battles. Small battles. It took them 30 years to do it, but they finally did it. So you don't have to get Strut power braces. I mean, Strut shock, excuse me, anymore. They come with the car. So for years and years and years and years, people have been wanting these. Everybody's been buying the red lines, doing what they need to do, you know, just to have this on here. Now they went ahead and say, hey, we'll put it on there. Like I said, it's the small little things, man. It's the small little things. All right, I think another thing that Ford should have done is give you the option for suspension upgrades. Now, it comes okay, base-wise, you know, what you got going on, but nobody is going to keep it that way unless you're not into cars or you're just buying a Mustang to have a Mustang. Anybody else that owns a Mustang for a reason, or, you know, likes to tinker in cars, or you're a car person or whatever, you're gonna alter stuff. You're gonna always alter stuff. Because with these, as they come from the factory, with the 19s, there's such a gap in the fenders and the wheel poke. The wheels are shoved all the way in. Like, you see, I mean, this kind of clears pretty good, but this is a bigger tire now. Tire and rim versus what's in here. So this comes out just a tad. Not it doesn't come out, but as you can see where it kind of floats in, where the factory one is way up in there. So this is a 10.5-inch rim in the front, or 10. I want to say it's a 10. It's 11 in the rear. So, you know, this is a 285, where the factory ones bring 255s with a 275 in the rear. So my front is bigger than the factory one rears. So that just goes to show you, they should give you more of an option. But anyway, we were talking about suspension. The car sets so high with the 19s. They should at least give you a package where, you know, you can sit there and get lowering springs, or have things squared away to a point where, you know, you have that option to say, hey, I want to have the car when I purchase it be lowered XYZ. You're going to do it anyway, right? So they should have those packages available to do that. I mean, anybody that's done, like again, with Mustangs, they're like a Swiss Army knife of cars. You can sit there and do a lot of different things with these things. So, you know, I think they should have just gave you that option too. But if not, you know, the aftermarket does well. You know, it helps them out too. So this is on the Steeda MagneRide springs. And by that being said, the MagneRide on this car is wonderful. Never owned a MagneRide car before, but this thing will take bumps and corners and whatever like it's not even happening. I mean, I have hit stuff on the bridges where, you know, you sit there and do that. This thing will just glide right over. You go whoop, and keep on going. Will not get unstable, anything. So MagneRide definitely is nice. Now, I can see some drawbacks with that with some other stuff. Like if you're doing drag racing, it's more stuff that you don't need. But if you want to drive it spiritedly, it even works great in corners, just to say. But anyway, back to the springs and whatever. You know, I got the Steeda springs on here, and you know, it brought it down pretty nicely. And these aren't even the aggressive ones. These are the MagneRide. I want to say they're Pro Kit or something. I can't tell you off the top of my head, but like I said, the fitment on them is wonderful. And like I said, the fitment in the rear is great. And again, like I said, I don't rub, and if I do rub on the front, it's just probably because I got a little wider tire than I probably need to. I probably should have gone with a 75, a 275 versus a 285 in the front, and I probably wouldn't have any of that issue, but it fills the tire in so much better around the rim. That's why I went ahead and did that. And like I said, if it weren't lowered, it wouldn't do it at all, right? But, you know, like I said, we're not all about that life. All right, guys, so that is some of the things about this car that, you know, I think should have been altered or changed or added or what have you. You know, that's just my opinion. Like I said, that's the way I see that this car should be. I've tailored this car to the way I like it. This is a good all-around car now. It rides on rails. The suspension's good. I have the one-piece drive shaft in there. I have the rear stop the hop kit and the alignment tool in there. I have this drive shaft loop. I have the K-member brace. I have now the strut tower brace. Front and rear sway bars on this car. I got this car exactly the way I want it right now. Now with the addition of the Whipple, it's got the power and the speed for it. So I am where I want it to be. It'll go good on a straight line. I got the drag set. I won't even call them drag set. It is the same rear wheels, just with the double R's, what is it, the R2s for Nitto versus the regular G2s. So when I want to go ahead and get onto it on days I know that I'm gonna get into this car like I need to, I'll just swap those out, put those on, have a good time, come back home, lift it back up, put the other ones back on, and it's a done deal. No problem whatsoever. We're gonna have to do that one day. We're gonna have to do it. So, and I'll pull you through that process of taking those up, putting those on, and going down the road. I did have Sebastian, one of our friends, to forescan some stuff on my car. So now my seat belts don't chime, because that drives me crazy sometimes. The little thing will still flash at the bottom, but it won't chime. And then I took off the tire pressure sensor monitors, because I always keep up with that anyway, but for the most part I go through wheels and tires all the time. At least I used to. Not so much anymore. Got no money. So with that being done that way, I could just swap in and out sets as I need to and not have to worry about changing TPS sensors or having to calibrate crap or do whatever. With the newer cars, This one versus Brandon's car, or the 23s even, they changed the megahertz of the TPS sensors, of course, because you know they have to be different on everything they do, right? The little things give you headaches. So where the other ones were, I think we're at 355 megahertz or something in there, these are 433. So you know they changed the whole thing, and then they have separate TPS sensors made for this car. So like I said, I do have those, and they're in these wheels right now. And then I do bought another set, a 4 for the other, if I ever bought any more. I do have those in the new ones, but like I said, this way it just works out better that I don't have to worry about it. So well, alright guys, that is my video for today. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Like I said, it was just kind of something I was thinking about. You know, I didn't want to do the 5 things I'd like or dislike. I just wanted to talk about the car. I want to talk about how Ford presented it and what it really is, at least in my opinion. And like I said, the car is great. A lot of people down it, and like I said, I understand the reasoning for people being hard on this car just because you can't tune it. But by adding the Whipple and having them have a tune to this car, and it's a mild tune at that, so if tuning ever is available with this car, this thing's going to be insane. Like I said, with a Whipple tune at 815 horsepower, dynoed, proven on the bigger pulley, that's insane. Like I said, that literally doubled the horsepower of this car. So like I said, I understand people saying this, that, and the other, and you know how people's like, oh, you got a high revving GT350. Those cars only perform good at those high levels. They have to. That's why they have that 5.2 to go that way. There's plus and minuses to different things, and like I said, it all depends what you want to do. Now, I wouldn't mind owning a 350 at some point, maybe a 500, and we'll see what comes out with these one day. You know, down the road, we'll see what happens. But like I said, you got to be happy with what you got. I am tickled to death with this thing now. Like I said, I wasn't so happy at first because they promise you the world and they only give you a little bit. So now that I have added, and like I said, I had to let go of some things to make this happen. You know, I let go of Electra, Sonic, whatever it is now. You've seen the transformation on Tyler's page, and some people keep hitting me up, and you know, that's his deal, man. I'm over that car. Like I said, I'm happy with this one. Like I said, he's done some good stuff with it. I probably wouldn't have done the USB upgrade, but you know, everybody's ears are a little different and they want to do what they want to do, right? And like I said, that car's great. You know, it's turned out pretty nice, and it's different than what I had it, but you know, different isn't wrong. You know, different is different. So like I said, I enjoy it. I think that car's still pretty as it can be, and like I said, hopefully he takes care of it and won't have clean those tailpipes though. You know what I'm talking about. But anyway, that is this video. I hope y'all enjoy it. Wasp is doing great, and like I said, we took her on her long trip the other day, last week, went through rainstorms and everything else, and we came back unscathed and happy to go. And like I said, she does good. Like I said, when you clean her up, she is pretty as can be. I'm glad I did get the yellow compared to the vapor and the colors that are out there. It pops and it's different. Now if you're doing some crazy shit and trying to run from the cops, I wouldn't do it because you don't blend in. But nevertheless, we don't support that, right? We don't do anything wrong in these channels. But anyway, guys, that is the video. I hope y'all enjoyed it. Come back for some more if y'all want to see some more stuff. I'll be thinking about what to do. I'm unemployed still, so I'll try to do a little bit more and more videos just to keep myself going crazy. Like I said, I spent hours looking for work, and that's more of a job than having a job. Anyway, guys, see you on the next video. Peace.